Hey, what is up, everybody? My name is Mario Pichardo, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking just generally about, excuse me, I'm a little, I'm a little backed up here today, but today I just want to take a minute, and just talk about the people out there who are suffering from feelings of depression, feelings of anxiety, feelings of loneliness, and that kind of stuff is like, well, how do I get out of that? And I think that the when you really look at the cause, a lot of it has to do with feelings of, um, you know, when we go back and we look at social media, and we look at all the things that social media did for us. Yes, it gave us an ability to talk to each other rapidly. It allowed us to keep in touch with everybody that we've ever known. It allowed us to, come to understand so many different, viewpoints and ideas that people have. But the other end of that, of the exposure to social media, was that everybody was immediately able to see, visualize, through pictures as well, what everyone else was doing. And when that happened, now we kind of got exposed to an environment where, okay, well, I can see what Joe's doing, but Sally's doing this, which is cool. And it immediately became some kind of like, what I'm getting at is, it immediately became this kind of like comparative. Okay, well, let me see how I'm doing compared to everybody else. And it also became this, well, I can get entertainment immediately at any point in time. We got the Netflix effect. And I think that for a lot of people, it started to create this environment where you can just turn on a camera and record something or create something and share it online. And it became hyper consumer culture, I think, is what it became. Everybody was just going for the next high. They were just going for the next, okay, how do I, what's fun to watch, or what's cool to see, or what can I see that I'm interested in? And because there's so many niches and there's so many, um, points of interest, whether somebody's more interested in sports, or someone's more interested in movies, or someone's more interested in, I don't know, crocheting. There's entire websites, there's entire YouTube channels, there's entire forum networks for people who are really literally interested in anything, that you could very quickly online find either people or content that's directly related to whatever you're interested in. And I think that that really created a situation where it's easier for people to go out and to get those connections and find those people and connect with them than actually create real world relationships with the people that are either around them, or so on and so forth. I think that because of how easy it is to go and find people online, or uh, go and get a quick high off of binging off of Netflix or something like that, that building real world relationships actually became more difficult for us. And because it became more difficult, humans want to take the route of least resistance. And so we said, okay, well, I'm just going to go out there and I'm just going to do this thing because it's easier, it's faster, and I don't have to put in as much work. I don't have to put in as much effort to get to know someone, when I can just go and binge watch all these shows, or binge watch all these episodes, or watch all these YouTube videos about things that I'm already interested in. I can just focus on me and not really have to focus so much on other people. And then that, um, and so I think that the internet has given us a hyper consumerist culture, I think, where magnified by marketing, which says, oh, you need this to be happy, you need this to be happy. And so now when you go on social media, not only do you have, okay, well, here's all these things you can just watch really quick that'll make you forget about how bad your life is, but here's some other things you can do to kind of distract yourself, And so people look at their own life. People can like watch a movie and escape from their own lives, and escape from how bad they perceive their own lives as being. And because we can do that, it's like, well, then why would I want to go back and live my own life if I can just live vicariously through the Avengers or through John Wick or through anyone really, through the Lord of the Rings, through um any of these, like Twilight, look at all these things that have done so well, and I can go through it and I could say, okay, well, I'd rather just live through this person because my life is like terrible, and I don't want to have to sit here and really kind of say, oh, okay, well, damn, things kind of suck right now. um how do I dig myself out of it? And so when you have a culture or a just like a subset of people where we're not really developing deeper relationships with one another, when we're always looking for the next big thing, when we're so focused on ourselves, where um, we are constantly trying to either one up each other or find something that is more beneficial to ourselves, and to capitalize on that, we are looking for quick fixes of ways to make ourselves feel better, and at the same cost, at the same time, kicking other people out of our lives that would fill in any void that we would have. It creates, I think, a society where everyone's more focused on themselves than they are, rather than being focused on, okay, well, what can I do with this person who lives right next to me, or what can I do with these other people who we share an apartment, we share. uh yeah, I was sitting down the other day, and it's crazy to see how many people just are like sitting here just on their phone, just like da 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 da. And it's like, well, what do you expect them to do? Because when someone's on their phone, well, it's easier to just sit here and be on my phone. It's easier for me to just watch exactly what I want to watch. I don't have to interact with anybody. Interacting with people feels awkward or uncomfortable at first. Awkward or uncomfortable at first. We may not have the same interests. We may not have the same things, but I know that if I go on Instagram, for example, I'll see some things that I like. So there, I'm like, kind of have a guaranteed, okay, I'll like this, or I can go on YouTube and watch, see what the people that already like it put up. That way, things are, and if I don't like it, I can just quit out. When you're in a conversation with someone, you don't just quit out, because relationships are more complicated than, a YouTube video. Relationships are more complicated than um, anything really. But it's funny because they're also one of those main points of contact that we need as human beings in order to feel not just that we belong, but not lonely, if that makes sense. And so, when you look at the demographics, so many more people, there's a loneliness epidemic that's growing. And the question is, well, why? And, when we look at, and I think that this is really the big factor here, even though it's a complex issue with a lot of factors that contribute, um, social media, YouTube, um, and the exposure to so many online ways of consuming content, especially the television. I think the television has a big influence here, because now you have, motion picture, where symbology, where your mirror neurons are firing off whenever you see somebody do something, and then you kind of get that symbolism of, this is what a successful man is. And people collectively gain the stereotypes of what a rich, successful person looks like, an ideal person looks like. Now you see your ads rolling out with motion picture in them. You see the symbols in even static images, and all of these advertisements, all of these motion pictures that you've been watching since you were younger, kind of start to feed subconsciously, this is what success is, this is what you need to be. And then people kind of start, subconsciously feeding on those ideas. And so then now they start to say, well, if I'm going to be successful, then I have to look like this. Or if I'm going to be famous, then I need to look like this person, or I need to be like this person. I need to have a job like this person, or I need to make as much as this person. And in other words, it creates a society where these status symbols are become more important than, you know, having a relationship with somebody. But um it also creates a dopamine addiction where because we can get things so fast, so a dopamine hit so fast, so quickly by just pulling out our phones. In other words, we can get dopamine addictions for essentially no work at all. Um, we don't find have an we rarely find a emotional reason to want to build relationships with people. Why should I sit here and devote 10, 15, 20, 100, 200 years in, you know, instead of hours plus hours? Why am I going to sit here and devote 50 years of my life, 20 years of my life, 30, 40, 50 years of my life in a relationship when I can get an emotional high that I want just like that? You know, and I'm not immediately going to realize the ramifications of eventually not having that relationship. In other words, it's a future cost for it's a short-term hit of dopamine for a long-term cost that I'm not going to feel now. In other words, it's not real to me in this moment that being on YouTube, being on my phone, just consuming content, just buying items is going to leave me unfulfilled. Um, and because I don't really recognize that emotionally now, it doesn't matter. It's like whatever. It's like, you know, it's something that I'll deal with in the future. And when you have that kind of situation, I think where the cost is really stuck in the future, um, it's the kind of situation where you don't worry about, I don't know, you don't care. It just doesn't hit you the same way. It's not something for concern right now. And the sad thing about that is that when it does eventually hit the population, when it does eventually hit people, then it's like, whoa, um, we end up with a society or a group of people who don't know how to get out of that. But it's not that they don't, not even that they don't know, but it's that they're not equipped with the tools, with the character to just get out of it. You know, there's not really there's not really a lot of local, you know, clubs that are like advertising everywhere that everybody knows about. That they can just go there and hang out with people. You know, the society is very much one that's um, you don't know where to go. You know, like let's say you don't have someone to talk to. You're not just gonna go knock on your neighbor's door and ask him if you can hang out, because that's not the cultural, you know, imperative in a lot of places. And so, you know, you end up with what happens when you have a huge group of people who are looking to meet new people because they realize that, well, I was on my phone for so long, like now I don't know what to do or who to talk to. Um, when those people start to seek other people to build relationships with because they realize how important those relationships are to them, and now that group of people can't find anyone to hang out with, that group of people now can't see where they need to be or who they need to be with or that kind of thing. Well, what does that group of people do now? Because now they're outcast, and unfortunately they're outcast in a society that favors superficial, you know, things. So it's hard. It's hard. And at the same time, they've been raised with these symbols, you know, through movies, through TV, pop culture, to think that it's the other person, like even if we're talking about romantic relationships, that it's the other person that's going to make you happy. Like another, like your friend is just gonna, or your significant other is just gonna be the person who like fulfills you and gives you this grandiose sense of, I'm done, I'm full, I did it, like, you know, I all I need is this person around and I'm done. In other words, I feel fulfilled, I feel like I've completely, like I've walked to the top of the mountain, there's nothing else that I need to do, it's over, you know, because I found this person, because I have this individual in my life now. My life is perfect. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of the time they're going to realize that's not how it works. It's not the other person that makes you happy. It's your own individual sense of being fulfilled, your own individual sense of being a full and complete person before the other person's introduction that gives you that full, that complete sense of who you are. But a lot of people don't realize that. And I don't think they realize that because I don't think they see the fact that, well, it's not the other person that's meant to bring you happiness. Happiness starts, uh, you know, within you. It's actually a choice that we make every moment to say, okay, well, I'm gonna choose to be happy right now. That, and then you give that to other people. It's not something that you get from other people. And so there's a lot of misconceptions. Not only is it that, the real culprit here is society. In insofar as, what does capitalism cost? What's the cost of capitalism? When you have, like, for example, when you have a business like Coca-Cola is not interested in the health and well-being of people. Why? How do we know that? Because look at what Coca-Cola does. Coca-Cola sells soft drinks with extraordinary sugar level content. They that's what they do. They sell sodas with very high fructose corn syrup, sugar content, so on and so forth. And so Coca-Cola is not in the business of making people healthy, literally not in the business of that. They're in the business of selling people Coca-Cola, and so listen, I'm not harping on capitalism. I think capitalism is the best economic system that modern society, that society historically has ever had the luck of having. I think capitalism is the best system possible, but capitalism also has some deep ramifications, just like any other system. And one of those ramifications is that capitalism, left unchecked, unregulated, can create enormous, I think, societal issues. So when you see Facebook come out, for example, when you see Twitter, when you see Instagram come out, and people from inside these social media companies say that we engineered, or we feel bad because we engineered our algorithms in such a way that it would make people addicted. You have to look at why they did that. Okay, well, their job was to increase how many people are going to Facebook, how many people are going to Instagram, how many people are going to YouTube, how many people are going to Snapchat, how many people are going to all these other social media platforms. And so the question kind of became, well, how do we make more people come through? How do we make more people come to our website? How do we make more people sign up? And ultimately for them, the thing was, okay, well, we just have to make sure that we're really, giving them some kind of emotional hit every time they do. So they engineered their systems to be just like slot machines. And what did that do for people? Well, if I got a hit of dopamine every time I open up Facebook, I'm going to open up Facebook as much as I can. Why? Because it feels good. And then I'm going to justify that later with logic. Well, I wanted to know what my friends were up to. Well, I didn't want to be left out. Well, I didn't want to do, there's so many reasons why we do things, but what's the societal cost of that? What happens if every 5 seconds I'm checking Facebook? What else am I going to be doing then with my time? Am I going to constantly be getting interrupted? Well, what happens if I'm constantly being interrupted? Probably not going to get anything else done, huh? And if we get a sense of fulfillment from making progress, if we get a sense of fulfillment from matching the blueprint that we have about our lives, whose blueprint of their lives is attached to constantly being and checking social media? No one's. And so what happens when you're using a social media platform long term? You're not going to feel fulfilled in your life. You're not. But and so, you can have a whole society, a whole group of people who become depressed because they're on these platforms, because they're not, they're not meeting people. They're not doing anything with their lives or with their time. And that sucks. And that really, really sucks. It really sucks. But that is a part of life. And so then the question is, well, is it an addiction? I think it is. I absolutely think that it is, because my definition of an addiction is going to be that, well, an addiction is anything that you you anything that you receive a good feeling from, that you are constantly doing, that isn't actually benefiting you in a way that you want your life to be. So like for example, well, no, you know what? I take that back, because there are things that I do that I know are not addictions for me, but that I just do to waste time or to spend time. Like I play a lot of games, a lot of video games, but that's not. I don't know that I'd say that I'm addicted to it. It's just that I just do it as a way to pass time. But when you look at social media, when you look at what it does to people over the long term, I think that it's definitely one of those things where you don't feel like you're making the you don't feel like it's giving you anything valuable at the end of the day. A lot of people, when they turn off social media for the long term, they find that they view the world through a different lens. And I can say that I did the same, because when I'm on social media, ooh, whole day can go by. And yeah, you listen, I might learn some stuff, I may watch some interactive or educational stuff on YouTube, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, how is this improving my life actually? And a lot of the time the answer is it isn't. Not, at least not immediately. Or the things that I learned, I never apply. So, I don't know. I just think that it's important for us to really ask ourselves and to think to ourselves, listen, am I doing something that is beneficial to me? And there's this book called Loneliness by this guy. I'm gonna look him up right now, actually, and just share who he is with you. Give me 1 second. Loneliness is called. Human Nature and the Need for Social Connection by John T. I'm gonna butcher this guy's last name. Cassiopo. Cassiopo. Who wrote this book called Loneliness. And it's a great read. A lot of what it does is it kind of breaks down why people feel lonely, how people cannot feel lonely. He talks a lot about all these different causes, all these different factors. He's very rooted in the research of other people, so it's a great read. Which I definitely recommend people read. But the thing is that, listen, if we have like an epidemic of loneliness, if we have an epidemic of people who don't really have a sense of or an ability to connect with other people because they either don't have the skills or because they find it difficult to do so, well, I think that we as members of society owe those other people some kind of intervention, in that we go out of our way to speak to other people, to intercept ourselves into the lives of others, not forcibly by any means, but literally just by having a conversation and saying, hey, what's up? Like, hey, do you know about this? Do you know about this? Other places to hang out, or just having genuine conversations with people where you're really listening to them, just those kinds of little small things that people can do, just having a small conversation, inviting someone somewhere, or letting them know that, hey, this club is a thing, you might be interested in it. Starts to build or create avenues where people can get to know other people. And I say this because as a person who spent a lot of his time, thinking about how my life was going to be better, thinking about how I was going to be a better person than so many other people, because I was going to do something amazing, because I was grown up by people telling me that I was amazing, and I was going to go do these cool, awesome things, and everybody's gonna love me, and I was gonna be like, and so I a lot of my feelings of self-worth, of a lot of my feelings of who I was as an individual were tied to me being successful in that. So you can imagine how I framed my every minute of every day in order to follow that. Listen, like I was the kind of person who didn't hang out with people because I was always focused on, okay, well, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, you know, and I always viewed it as, well, if I'm not working on my thing, then I'm never going to be the person that I want to be. I'm going to give up all this potential, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, that was my whole life, you know, and it was, when I look back at it now, was it selfish? Yes and no. Was it not selfish? Yes and no. I mean, but that's besides the point. The whole thing is that, you know, as people, we kind of have to go back and say, well, you know, there are skills that I need that I don't just have. Okay. I think millennials, or at least this generation, and I think it's a historic thing too. It's not just the generational thing, but listen, a lot of people have always told themselves that, hey, you know, I'm going to be this kind of person who does this, and I'm going to be super great at it, and everybody's going to love me, and I'm going to be awesome. But they don't really understand it just because they've been told that their whole life, but they don't have the skills to back that up. Okay, life isn't the same way that it is in a video game, or the same way that it is in, you know, just because of what people tell you. And in the real world, you have to put in work, and sometimes it's a lot of work. Okay, and it's going to be something that you can do in 10 months is going to could take 10 years, could take 5 years. And that's just the reality of it, because a lot of the time we kind of way overestimate our own ability to get something done. So it's difficult, I think, for us to really understand, just to that own end, that we don't really have a firm grasp on how things actually are, in terms of how long it's going to take to do something, in terms of what really would bring us happiness or a sense of connection, or even, and this is kind of frightening, what our own sense of, or of our own sense of ability. A lot of the time, sometimes we overestimate what we can do, or rather, I should say, what we will do. Because we can do, I think, almost anything, but will we do it? You know, I think that it's hard for one person to look at their own character and say, do I have the, like me, for example, do I have the work ethic? Do I have the work ethic to sit here and actually do the things that I talk about? And I think woefully, I myself can find myself lacking, really lacking, you know, and it brings me down sometimes, but there's so many things about ourselves that we need to understand. And I'm working on that, so that's fine. But I think there's a think that there's always going to be a hole in people's lives until they find something that is fulfilling for them. But that thing that they find is inextricably going to be tied to other people, and goes beyond the self. And until we realize that it goes beyond you and me or anybody else, then we're always going to be kind of looking for that thing, and looking for something to fill in a gap that can't be filled by any external object. So yeah, guys, I know this one's been running a little long. I just kind of wanted to get on camera, start talking about some things. So sorry if it's very, you know, all kind of jumbled up in terms of the delivery of these ideas, and I'm kind of just like addressing them as they come up in my own head. So with that, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. Feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.